Welcome back to a Clairvoyant Living Series. Thanks for joining us again. I am Jackie Mahalchik, clairvoyant reader, inspirational speaker, teacher, and the blogger of A Clairvoyant Journey.
And I'm Michelle DesPres, clairvoyant medium, inspirational speaker, and author of The Clairvoyant Path.
Today we're going to be talking about empowerment, but over the last few videos we've been talking about sustainable change. And last week we spoke about enlightenment, and it just seemed natural to kind of go right into empowerment. So Michelle, what does empowerment mean to you?
Well, it is one of the words in the title of my book.
Oh!
The Clairvoyant Path, follow your inner healing or follow your inner wisdom to healing, empowerment, and change.
Okay, so what does that mean?
I know. Well, so what is empowerment, right? I think that empowerment is a tricky thing, because when we think about being empowered, sometimes I think we think that that has some sort of like, you hold your ground, you never back down, you know yourself like that, nobody's going to change you in some sense, like I'm empowered to be me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that empowerment is much more than that. I think it is about understanding how to hold your ground and be you, but I also think empowerment is how to allow other people to be who they are as well and not have to combat the world.
That's a really good point. I think that empowerment, the word itself, talks about strength and power, and like you kind of go at it like I'm empowered to do something. I am, but how often do you think of it as empowering somebody else to be them, and allowing that to happen?
Right. Is that a point of empowerment?
Is it? I think that's hard. I think that I think when I think of empowerment for myself, I think of having that force and the tools behind me to do what I need to do. I've become empowered, and a lot of people may think empowered by strength. But I guess I look at it as I'm empowered by knowledge. I'm empowered with tools. And that's kind of what I would like to be really impress upon other people, is that if you think of empowerment more as a strength factor, and that
just ability to sort of lord over.
Right, because power is in the word. So I think that's why it kind of ends up being very strong.
Yes, and it has this connotation of maybe
like
rolling over somebody.
I'm going to arm wrestle you and I'm empowered,
Right.
I don't know, I just feel like that, but my perception and take on it is I really would like to see it looked at as I'm empowered by having these tools.
Yes, and like you said, the knowledge. What knowledge have you gotten, particularly through this clairvoyant understanding, living like we do as clairvoyants? What knowledge does that give you, and how does it empower you?
That's a great question. I think that every single class that I've been to and that I've taught or been a student in gives me a little bit more knowledge, more clarity, more understanding of not only, well, first and foremost, myself.
Right.
But not only myself, but in understanding myself, I begin to understand other people better.
It's so true.
And that part empowers me to know that what I'm feeling is not, singular, not what I'm going through may not be by myself, and it empowers me because I'm part of something.
Maybe that's the knowledge too, because as you start to really see all of the pieces of yourself clairvoyantly, and you understand what you're viewing, that's that point where when you see another person, you recognize that person in yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that point of empowerment comes. You can recognize where they're at. You don't have to change where they are. You can accept them, but it also lets you know who you are, where you're at.
Yeah, it pulls apart your ability to discern better. You become able to see a situation and maybe look at it from different perspectives versus the narrow, singular perspective that you may have once had. And once I've started tapping into these classes and opening up myself more to my clairvoyance, I've realized that we are all interconnected.
And the same.
But the caveat with that is, just because we're all the same does not mean we're all going to be feeling and doing the same at the same time.
Exactly.
And I think that's where frustration comes in with other people, where it's like, I'm happy, and you go somewhere and they're like not happy, and you're like, you really struggle with maintaining that happiness, and it can get frustrating because that they're bringing you down, or it's just not the same.
Or even on that other scale, and I think this is where tools come in. You know, when somebody else is having wonderful things happen and you're waiting for wonderful things to happen, and how do you still have excitement for somebody else but still have what you're having for yourself in a sense?
Right. It's being able to see the picture that you're not being punished, you're just not at that point of your path.
And maybe that, exactly, and that's one of the tools we use, right?
Or you
is
were
to
at
look
that
at
point,
neutrality.
and you're onto a different section. Yes, looking at neutrality.
Yes. And permission for self, understanding the divine time. It's okay for you to be where you're at.
Right.
It's okay for somebody else to be where they're at. That is really great empowerment when you're all of a sudden going, that's okay. It's okay for me to be right here, right now.
Yeah, and it's not easy. Neither of us are saying just because you tap into your clairvoyance and you're having to witness somebody enjoy or deal with something that you've been dreaming of and you don't have it and they do,
right?
And all of a sudden, just because I'm clairvoyant and I've tapped into that, I'm like, oh, it's okay.
It's okay.
All of a sudden,
you're
you're going to still feel those feelings, but you're going to feel them on a different level. You're going to have a better understanding as to, one, why you're feeling it, because we all know, first and foremost, you feel it because it's like, oh, I want that.
Or a sense of, or you feel it too because you're not sure you have a sense of like deserving.
Right.
Maybe you don't deserve something like that, and so it just reinforces, oh, I can never have it.
And you see it and you go, oh, you know what? That's awesome for them. I know there's a chance for me still. You see that it can happen, and you're able to discern the fact that, oh, that is what I've got to look forward to.
And it lets you find that voice.
Yes.
Where you do have a negative skew of yourself. Wait a minute. There's such thing as divine timing. I have to be okay with where I'm at. My time will come too. And so it takes out takes out sort of this, I don't know, thwarting of the self.
Yeah, that's really, I think
that type of a tool.
That's a go-to thing that most people, I think it's just a generalized statement that for the most part, us humans instantly will be negative and judgmental on ourselves. If something doesn't happen the way we wanted it to, it's our fault.
Right.
And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be taking the blame for that, because that, 9 times out of 10, it is our fault because of whatever we put in our way, but it's being able to open yourself up and realize that if it's my fault, why is it my fault? What am I doing to stop it? What can I do to speed it up? What lessons can it's being able to have those conversations deeper with yourself.
Yes, and if you're not able to have those kinds of conversations with yourself, you're disempowered.
Exactly.
Because you can't overcome those hurdles. You're not sure where you need to overcome hurdles.
So empowerment really could be being able to see the bigger picture.
Sure.
Being able to take a look at the bigger picture, being able to, and I know we talked about it with enlightenment, so it's really, like we said last time though, it is really a fine line in a sense.
Right.
It's the same and different, but it is about education. It's about knowledge. It's about being receptive to getting that information and processing it and being empowered by it.
Right, without feeling like anybody else has to follow your same stance.
Yeah, it's like you're a great guitar player. She plays guitar, and but the self sitting there going, no, not why'd you bring that up? You're not supposed to talk about that. But it's like you should be empowered by the fact that when you do play, it brings about something with you, and you're good at it, and that should make you feel empowered.
Well, that it does for
Right?
sure. It's one of the things that I use to break myself out of my mental body. Because it empowers me overall. It takes me out of one stance and gives me a creative flow again.
Right.
So I totally use that as a tool for empowerment.
But that is like a good, if you start to, one thing I like to try and do is when I can't figure out what something is, what emotion or feeling do I attribute to it? Okay, so empowerment, what is it to you? Don't know? How does it make you feel? What does that word do to you?
Right. Maybe it's really true. Okay, so what are you going to do this week to empower yourself? What are you going to do to foster that? We do these off the cuff.
Yes. What am I going to do this week? I'm actually going to really stop myself in situations where I want to be quick to judge a situation and really look at it from the perspective of, they're just at a different spot than I am. And I think that's going to help me with empowerment for myself, to keep myself in a positive frame of mind.
Right.
And keep myself empowered.
I think what I'll do to keep myself empowered this week is to find my own personal balances. Work, play, that kind of stuff. I think that that's part of empowerment too for me. That point of doing and being. And we didn't really touch on that, but for me, empowerment is really also about finding balance.
Yeah.
Between the many elements of my life. And so I will be focusing on that.
Awesome.
Cool.
Great.
So figure out what you would like to empower yourself with this week. And like I said, we just present these ideas and topics to you so you can think about them. This is what we think, but don't be afraid to think for yourself.
Yeah. Please think for yourself.
Please.
Anyway, this has been us, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.